Hi, thanks for signing on to watch this video presented by Oscar's Animals and for wanting to learn more about how to handle visitors to the house if your dog goes wild with terror or excitement, and how to set up slow introductions to unfamiliar people for those dogs that need that. First and foremost, know you're not alone. Dogs barking at, jumping on, lunging towards, or growling at people arriving to the house is a really common scenario faced by people who live with dogs. All this hubbub at the door when someone comes knocking can definitely be a recipe for problems. The good news is there's a pretty straightforward and easy to implement solution. Since most of you likely have a dog who's actually more concerned about the scenario than happy about it, in addition to talking about how to set this situation up for success, we're going to delve a bit into understanding the reasons behind why we recommend setting this up the way we do. So let's first look at why dogs might behave this way. Unfamiliar people arriving at a house is very often an upsetting situation for dogs, especially those who are more sensitive or fearful. Look at it from your dog's point of view. While you may know people are coming, your dog very likely doesn't, and will often startle at the sudden environmental change when a quiet setting is interrupted by a knock on the door or a ring of the doorbell. This is then followed by a tsunami of sensory input: the smell, the sound, the sight, along with the excitement on the part of the humans when they rush to answer the door. This can send a lot of dogs over the edge. Some folks believe a dog who goes over the top when someone comes to the house is being protective, but most likely that dog is really just over-aroused, concerned, or afraid. We, of course, don't want to let our dogs practice this, and we definitely don't want to encourage our dogs to get this stressed out when someone comes to the door. Allowing your dog to practice barking at visitors to the house when they arrive is asking for trouble for a variety of reasons. Number one, it elevates stress levels, and these are going to take time, days or even weeks, to dissipate. This is undesirable because high stress levels can affect behavior across the board. Number two, it's not your dog's job to worry about who's coming to the house, it's yours. Allowing him to believe it's his role can lead to a very undesirable habit and much unneeded stress in your dog's life. Number three, it's totally dangerous. If an emergency worker needs to enter because you're passed out in your bathtub, but your dog has a long history of growling and barking at people who enter, it could be quite dangerous. As an aside, if someone really is breaking into your house with the intent to do harm, even the most welcoming of dogs is likely to behave differently. So the solution is bringing in management and allowing our sensitive dogs to acclimate more slowly to the presence of a visitor, whether they're a friend or a stranger. Basically, we're setting up the situation so our dogs experience it through just a couple senses at a time, rather than all of them all at once. This gives a dog more time to recalibrate to an arrival without the pressure to interact, and instead of being presented with the full onslaught of the experience. We're also going to bring in opportunities for our dogs to engage in self-soothing behaviors like chewing and licking when the visitor arrives, so we can help our dogs feel as relaxed and low stress as possible about the situation, with the added bonus of them perhaps learning people visiting is a predictor of tasty things. We want to set up things for success using good management and helping our dogs feel safe and calm when visitors arrive from start to finish. Keep in mind the same framework can also be used to introduce dogs to people you'd like them to know and trust, and can be modified for slow dog intros. So let's talk a little bit about why we do this. To build a dog's comfort and confidence, we need to facilitate anxiety-free experiences around those things our pups aren't sure about. Many folks mistakenly believe that exposure is what a fearful or worried dog needs. That is just not the case. Simple exposure could actually make things worse. Think about it. If your dog isn't having a good time, he's learning the world or whatever particular situation is not fun or safe. And if your dog is rehearsing things you don't like, guess what's becoming a habit? Instead, we want to be carefully managing circumstances and experiences so that our dogs feel totally comfortable, which teaches them the situation is no cause for concern. This means keeping our dogs feeling safe, whatever that looks like for your particular dog, and building your dog's trust in you that you're going to keep them feeling safe. Again, the main goal is to set up the experience, ensuring that your dog will feel calm and safe from start to finish, which we should note is not initially barking and lunging and then eventually simmering down. Remember, there's more to people-related experiences than having your dog interact with that person. In fact, that's often far too much for many dogs. Instead, watching and listening and smelling from a distance means a dog can remain feeling safe while experiencing and learning about something more slowly. We do not put our dogs into circumstances that are far beyond their capacity to feel comfortable with. In this case, that would be being right at the door when visitors show up. A pup that's barking, lunging, and growling is communicating they are uncomfortable and overwhelmed. We do not make or force our pups to approach, interact with, or be obedient around things they're tentative about or afraid of. And we definitely don't bribe or bait a dog closer to things he finds concerning or scary with treats. This means for pups who are unsure, fearful, or just not into meeting or being touched by unfamiliar people, making them do so in an effort to help them get over their fears is not recommended. Many dogs just aren't into being touched by people they don't know, and that is perfectly okay, but you do need to be your dog's advocate. Remember, the more your pup has been offered opportunities to feel safe around something, the more he's going to lean towards feeling safe in the future, and that's going to be reflected in his behavior. Every experience a dog has in which he feels safe and comfortable is a deposit in the bank account. And the more deposits he has in the bank account of trust, the more wiggle room you're likely to have when it's time for an unexpected withdrawal. And so while creating good experiences is key, so is avoiding less ideal ones. So how do we set up for success with visitors? Here's the plan. First, think ahead. Ideally, your pup's gonna have had some vigorous but not over-arousing exercise prior to people coming. Have visitors give you a heads up by texting or calling a few minutes before arriving so you can set the stage. Keep the door locked with a note that reads, "We hear you, but we need a minute to set up our dog for success so any unexpected visitors can't barge in." Remember, top priority here is keeping both the people and the dogs safe. Before visitors enter the house, realize that many dogs find it far less worrying to enter a room where a visitor is already present. It's just a really different context to a dog than already being in a room that someone enters. So we can use this to set things up for success. We have a couple different options. So for dogs who start sounding the alarms when hearing someone pull into the driveway or walk towards the front door, you can set your dog up in the car in the garage where he can't hear that happen, so he isn't present in the house at all when the person first shows up. For some dogs, that extra garage step is not necessary. It can work to have them just out of sight of the front door, maybe crated or confined in a bedroom or a laundry room where they can't see the front door and are some distance away. You're going to give your dog a relaxing long-term project like a raw bone or a bully stick or a frozen stuffed Kong or something similarly long-term and high value in their confinement area just before people arrive. So your pup can engage in the stress-reducing activity of chewing and licking while passively learning about the visitor just via smell and sound. For more about licking, chewing, and other enrichment options, visit our resources page. If your dog isn't comfortable with being confined out of sight of you in the house, you'll need to work on this before you call on this skill when visitors are coming. Check out the confinement training video for more on that. So here's a little clip of what this prep might look like in the few minutes after your visitor has texted, but before they've arrived. So we're going to head to the freezer where we have all our long-term fabulous chew items prepared and ready. We've got a raw bone for Loki, and we've got a licky mat for his little sister. And we've got the crates already set up in the bedroom. We're going to head in there. These dogs are already crate trained. Loki loads up with his raw bone. We close him in. He's going to start chewing. Then we head over to the next crate. Load up his little sister, who's also crate trained. And she gets her licky mat. We're going to close the door. And we're going to close the door to the bedroom so they don't have visual access to the visitor. Okay, so we have the dogs all set up and the visitors have come in. Once your visitors have entered and they've settled down and been there for 15 minutes or so, we have lots of different options, depending on the dog and how long it typically takes them to recalibrate or become comfortable with a stranger. Note that for dogs who've been in the car in the garage, the next step would be bringing them into a space they find safe in the house where they can hear and smell but not see the visitors. This could be maybe in a crate in a peripheral area, or a hallway with a baby gate that prevents access to the spot where the visitors are hanging out. We are going to be sure to give our pup a relaxing long-term project like that raw bone or bully stick when they come into the house and head into the confined area to set them up with a self-soothing outlet. Depending on the dog, the next step could be bringing in the next sense, visual access, or the sight of the visitor, provided the dog is calm and relaxed. The amount of time needed before taking the step is going to vary a lot from dog to dog, from a few minutes to a couple hours to multiple visits. If you don't have a setup where you can just open the crate door into a baby gated room, you'll have to leash the dog and bring them from out of sight confinement into another confined area within sight, but still some distance, but within sight of, but still some distance from the visitors. Perhaps to an exercise pen or a crate at the edge of a room your visitors are hanging out, or into a baby gated hallway. You're going to bring his soothing lick or chew project with him. You're going to experiment to see which combination of time, durations, and locations works best. Don't forget, the nature of the visitors is going to change the complexion of things. You're going to be sure to ask your visitors to ignore the dog, and if there's any risk that a dog will jump a baby gate or exercise pen, you're going to use a crate to ensure everyone's safety. So here we have a little clip of, we've brought Loki out into the kitchen and we've cordoned him off using an exercise pen, and the visitors are over there in the dining room goofing off. For his little sister, we've just set up a baby gate across the doorway to the bedroom and opened the door to her crate. And we've brought out her licky mat so she can lick away right there behind the baby gate next to the room, but she can see the visitors. The last step could be giving your dog physical access to the visitors. We only want to bring in this step in situations where we're 100% sure our dogs feel safe and comfortable, and we're able to continue to monitor our dogs for signs of stress. For many dogs, fear may manifest as nipping at the heels of unfamiliar people, especially when they get up or move around. The best route in this case would be just to keep that kind of dog confined to the space in which they feel safe, since it is not easy to predict the movements of visitors. If a dog doesn't show this type of behavior, becomes comfortable with people fairly quickly, and has no history of any type of using teeth on humans, giving physical access could definitely be an option. One helpful management tool could be a muzzle. Teaching a dog to wear a muzzle can be a great tool to ensure everyone's physical safety. However, it's still going to allow the dog to practice undesirable behavior, so it's only to be used as a just in case something totally unexpected happens type of tool when you're confident that your dog is feeling totally comfortable. Note that this doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can give your dog physical access to visitors for a brief time, then set him back up in confinement so you don't have to focus as intensely on his communication while people are visiting. Often, the best way to help a dog feel comfortable once out of confinement is to instruct your visitors to ignore him. It's important to recognize that our body language may be telling our dogs certain things, whether we mean it or not. Dogs innately find some human gestures and body language threatening, especially human greetings, which include 3 major scary things for dogs who are sensitive: direct eye contact, leaning out and over, and facing them directly head on. Most people, unfortunately, usually exhibit all these behaviors when greeting dogs. So it's definitely going to benefit your dog and help them to feel more at ease if you coach visitors to greet them in a more dog-like manner. This would include orienting themselves perpendicular to the dog, not making any eye contact, and perhaps crouching down. All of this will help your pup recognize that no harm is intended. Keep in mind, this looks like ignoring, so that's why we instruct people to do that. So here's a little clip of allowing access to visitors. We've taken down the exercise pen. Loki is free to engage. Our visitors are fabulously ignoring him. And we've got a super low-key interaction here. This is completely ideal. This is what we want it to look like. For his little sister, we nonchalantly get up and remove the baby gate so she has access to come out, and then we just go about our business. not a lot of fuss or hubbub. And that also looks pretty calm and collected. So once our dogs have physical access to visitors, we want to closely monitor their communication. The best way to understanding how a dog is feeling is by reading their body language. Recognizing what overwhelm, fear, and stress looks like is a critical piece to sharing life with a dog, but is really important when having visitors to the house. Behaviors communication and dogs, like people, have a spectrum of discomfort. Here you can see the progression. We start with early signs, which are subtle behaviors that we call stress signs. The next stage, the mid signs, are more obvious signs like barking, lunging, and growling. And then, of course, we have the late stage signs that all involve teeth. We want to recognize and intervene when we see the early signs, which keeps everyone safe and stress levels lower, among other things. So, stress signs are normal behaviors, but seen out of context indicate anxiety or discomfort. Yawning, licking their lips, sniffing the ground, shaking off, looking away, freezing, showing a lot of whites in their eye, and having a closed mouth are some typical stress signs. We have to keep in mind that stress signs are pretty context specific. For example, if a dog yawns at bedtime, they're probably tired. But if a dog yawns when a visitor is trying to pet him, that likely means stress. We also want to notice that stress signs are deviations off a dog's relaxed body state. So they're not really universal. For example, whale eye, which is what this little pup is showing here, a lot of white in their eye, is a stress sign for this dog, but would probably not be a stress sign for a bulldog who naturally has a lot of white in their eye. Another non-universal stress sign is a closed mouth. This is only a stress sign for dogs who naturally carry their mouths open, like a lot of our retrievers, our Bernese Mountain Dogs, our pitties. For those dogs, a closed mouth would be an indicator of anxiety. However, many dogs naturally carry their mouth closed. So for those dogs, a closed mouth would not indicate anxiety. When you see stress signs in your individual dog, you want to help them out by doing one of a couple of things. Stop what you're doing or whatever anyone else is doing to your dog. Increase your distance from the thing that's concerning your dog, or exit the situation altogether. So in addition to keeping everyone safe, there are a lot of very valid reasons why we want to learn about our canine communication and respond appropriately to signs of discomfort that our dogs show. So let's say we have a dog who, after slow introductions, wants to physically interact with visitors. First, keep in mind that just because a dog sniffs or touches someone does not mean they're asking to be touched. We also want to remember that many people find touching dogs really enjoyable, but many dogs don't really enjoy being petted by strangers, or at least don't enjoy it for as long as most people do. So how can we tell if a dog is really asking for petting or enjoying it? Often, a dog will lean on a person or nudge a person's hand. That's a pretty good indicator. And if that's the case, we can have our guests go ahead and pet our dogs. But we do want to coach them to enact petting consent. This means basically pausing every few seconds and waiting to see what the dog's response is, to see if the dog wants the petting to continue. So you're going to scratch on maybe on the chest or on the chin just for a couple of seconds, and then have your guest remove their hand. If your dog leans in or paws or nuzzles or moves closer to the person, they're asking for more touching. If the dog doesn't do anything, disengages, walks away, or starts showing some stress signs, that's a pretty good indicator that that dog is done being touched and the petting should stop. Here's a little video of what this looks like. We're going to show someone petting this dog a little bit and then pausing to see what the dog has to say about it. So we've got a little scratch on the chest. Oh, dog moves closer. That's a yes. A little bit more scratching. Oh, yeah. So notice she's only petting for a second or two and then waiting to hear what the dog says. This is basically just an ongoing conversation. And this is a really good way to make sure our dogs are not uncomfortable. So what if you have a dog who isn't afraid, but they're completely over aroused or overexcited? We can use the same process for over-aroused, jumpy, mouthy pups who actually are usually anxious as well, but it just is expressed a little differently. Many excitable pups need slightly slower introductions to newly arrived people, in which they have a couple of minutes to just gather information about the circumstances before being asked to engage. Often, they won't even try to jump on visitors when then given access. And if they do, they may have needed a little bit more time to recalibrate. Giving dogs more time to acclimate spells quieter, calmer greetings. And remember, we're shooting for calm from start to finish. We can use this same framework, introducing something to our pups more carefully, just one or two sentences at a time, in other situations as well, including for introducing a pup to people you'd like him to get to know and trust, like close friends or a pet sitter. We can use this framework out in the world, using a crate in the car and working perhaps towards going for a walk together with someone. We can also introduce a pup to dogs you'd like him to get to know using this framework, or to a new foster dog that you're welcoming into your home. More on that in our slow dog introductions video. Keep in mind, this is just a general outline, and since there's a great degree of variability among dogs and visitors, you may want to bring in a behavior professional to hone in on a more specific protocol for you and your individual dog. Remember, you're creating habits here, so don't push your luck. Better safe than sorry. For most dogs, all these stages are not going to happen in one visit. And for some dogs, they may be most comfortable just with stage one, confined at a site when visitors are there, and that is perfectly okay. Don't feel pressure to move through all the stages. If you opt to leave your dog crated in your bedroom, chewing merrily away for the duration of someone's visit, your dog is having a start to finish, relaxing, safe feeling experience. And remember, that's our goal. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope this little tutorial is helpful. If you have more questions about handling visitors to your house or slow introductions to people, or any aspect of your dog's behavior, don't hesitate to reach out to us at Oscar's Animals. We are here to help.